All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this regular meeting of the Tigard-Tualatin School Board. I will call the meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. Dr. Ricky Smith, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are none, Chair.
All right, hearing that, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
I second.
Motion was made by Vice Chair Jaimes and seconded by Director Zerschmied. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll move to a choral vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And with that, we will move into action items, part 1. And I will now yield the floor to Nancy Hungerford.
Members of the board and superintendent, members of the audience, the board during the executive session held a hearing under ORS 332-544. Under that law, school district employee may be dismissed by the superintendent, but may request a post-dismissal hearing before the school board, asking the board to reverse that decision. The board heard from that employee in executive session, as well as district staff. At this time, board members, there's a need for you to take action either to reverse or to uphold the decision of the superintendent to dismiss this employee.
I move that the Tigard-Tualatin School Board of Education uphold the superintendent's recommendation regarding the matter discussed in executive session on February 6th, 2023.
I second the motion.
Motion was made by Director Zerschmied and seconded by Director Bowman. We will now do a roll call vote, and I will just go down the line. So Director Bowman,
Aye.
Director Zerschmied,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jaimes.
Abstain.
I will vote aye, and the motion will carry for a 3-0-1 vote to uphold the superintendent's recommendation regarding the matter discussed in executive session on February 6, 2023.
Thank you.
And we'll do a quick seat shift. And while that happens, so next on our agenda is to discuss and vote and appoint our board vacancy. And before we get started with that discussion process, I did want to take a moment to thank our community. We had 26 community members submit letters of interest, which is really a testament to how deeply our community cares about our students and underscores just how important the work that we do as a school board continues to be. So I really just applaud all of the people that showed up and answered our questions. And it was all during public session. It was a work session, so it was all streamed live on YouTube. So everybody had an opportunity to see all the candidates. So for this discussion portion, we will be using numbers, just a random number that corresponds with a candidate, and you all in your file folders have that sheet. And so I think to begin with, and we can kind of engage in dialogue around candidates, but using numbers instead of names. And so perhaps one place to start would be for us to share perhaps our top 2 or 3 numbers to see if there are commonalities and then go from there. So I would open the floor to people that would just like to kind of start us off.
Thank you. Good evening. I would also like to thank the public for coming out and supporting us and helping try to move the work forward that we are trying to do here. And it was unfortunate that we couldn't, accommodate people shifting their appointments, but it was something that we held fast with everybody. So it was something that we did equally for everybody. For me, I would like to say that my top 3 would be, let me see here. Number 11 would be my first choice. Number 14 would be my second choice. And number 9 would be my third choice. And I believe that these 3 candidates all have the ability to undertake the duties of the position. I believe that they all bring a strong equity lens with them. And I also believe that they have performed duties that have helped the school district in the past. And it's apparent that they care about the district and that they care about moving the district work forward.
My top two candidates are number 9 and number 14 in no particular order. My sort of second tier would be candidates 11 and 7.
My my top three were 14, 9, and 5.
All right. And mine, we actually have quite a bit of overlap. So mine would be 9, 11, and 14 as well for very different reasons. And I'll say, I do really appreciate how many people understood our equity work and who we serve and why we do this work. There was a particular candidate that did really mention student voice being important. And so that was something that really stood out to me. I think was the only candidate in which to do that. So I really appreciated that. And also, you know, thinking ahead just to see how much the community came out for this, how many people know that this work is important, and also kind of thinking of other ways to involve them in our work. Even if this they don't necessarily get the appointment for this particular seat. So we do have quite a bit of overlap. We could either continue discussion of kind of the ones that we have the most overlap on, or we could move to a potential nomination of a candidate. Thoughts?
I'm ready to move with the nomination, but I don't want to cut off board members who feel like they're uncertain or maybe want more dialogue.
So it seems like what I heard was that there are 2 candidates who were mentioned by all 4 of us. And so I feel like we maybe need a little bit of time to discuss what's essentially going to be a tiebreaker conversation between those 2 candidates. I am very torn about this one. On the one hand, we have a candidate who I think brings a really great experience to the board. On the other hand, we have somebody who brings a really great perspective to the board. And it's not immediately obvious to me which one of those is the more important. I could make the argument either way, quite frankly. And so I just want to put that out there and see what my fellow board members have to say.
Yeah, it is interesting that we had overlap, and really all of the people that we've identified really bring a lot to the table. I think I would probably lean towards 14 for a couple of reasons, and one of them, which I mentioned earlier, which was the only person to have really thought to mention student voice and that the importance of that. And then there were some really interesting things around the equity question. And there was a comment about some of the defaults and sort of looking at our systems, looking at our policies, looking at just the way we do things and what are those defaults and what do those mean and what are we saying with those, that really gave me pause. And kind of something that I'd like to delve into and think about a little bit more. And so, and I think fresh perspectives is really important. And so I think for me, that would be, you know, of the tiebreaker, that would kind of push it to 14.
Yeah, and I'll start by saying what I suppose is probably obvious to us, but maybe not ever. This is a really hard decision. This is a really challenging decision. And there are people who did not make my top 3 who I think would be fine board members. Building off Chair Irvin, I think we're mostly aligned actually in where we're coming from. The dynamic I would add for my colleagues' consideration is to consider what perspectives, expertise, skills are not represented among the 4 of us, Boards are dynamic. You oftentimes have different skill sets or different backgrounds or different perspectives. And for that reason, I'm leaning towards 14. That's who I was going to make the motion to approve. And to your point, would feel confident in number 9 as well as a valuable board member. So that's where I'm at. And for those reasons.
I guess for me, excuse me, the main reason why I would include 11 in this is for those same reasons that you just outlined, Director, because this individual brings a perspective that we're often lacking, not only in, not only on the board, but also within our own school system of, one of our most marginalized voices. And so I think that that's why my appeal for elevating their voice and bringing them up onto the table. In equity, we've often talked about who's missing at the table and whose voice is missing. And that is the main reason why I would pick number 11.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what you said there. And also to going back to what Director Bowman said, when I was going through this list, I found 7 names that I think they could all make fine board members. And so this is a really sticky situation. But I would like to state that if you are not the person that we select tonight, I would remind everybody that filing for election started today. And so if you are not selected by us for this 5-month appointment, there are some fine people who would make fine board members on this list who interviewed. And so I would just encourage you to not lose heart.
So at this time, do we want more discussion, or at this time, if anyone has a nomination they would like to bring forward, we could entertain that?
I move to appoint Crystal Weston to the vacant seat on the Tigard-Tualatin School Board.
I second.
Are there any further nominations?
I would like to nominate Surma John to the school board.
Is there a second? I don't think I can as chair.
You can't.
Okay.
You don't have
All right. Okay. So failing a second from the second motion, we go back to the original motion that had a second. Thank you for bearing with me on this Robert's Rules maze. All right. So we have a motion and a second. I would entertain a motion that the Tigard-Tualatin School Board appoint Crystal Weston to fill the vacancy created by Dr. Lynn's resignation.
So moved.
Second.
All right. With that, we will do a roll call vote. And I will go down the line once more. Director Billman?
Aye.
Director Zerschmied?
Aye.
Director Jaimes?
Aye.
I am also aye. And the motion carries unanimously. And with that, we would invite Crystal Weston to come on up and we will be able to swear you in this evening. And congratulations.
Please stand facing me. Very good. So it's now time for you to take your oath of office. And so please repeat after me. I, and then state your name,
I, Crystal Weston,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Oregon
and the Constitution of the State of Oregon
and the laws thereof,
and the laws thereof,
and the policies of the district,
and the policies of the district,
Washington and Clackamas Counties, Oregon.
Washington and Clackamas Counties, Oregon.
During my term,
During my term,
I will faithfully,
I will faithfully,
honestly,
honestly,
and impartially
and impartially
discharge the responsibilities of the office
discharge the responsibilities of the office
of Board of Directors member
of Board of Directors member
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
you.
Congratulations. And you get to have a seat. And again, I just want to offer a lot of gratitude and a lot of just care around everybody that came out, that interviewed. They were not easy questions. It was not easy for us to make this decision. Again, I think all of us could name several people that would really make incredible board members, and we want you to be involved in our TTSD community in any way that you see. And so I really appreciate all of you doing that. And again, this is a tough decision. So thank you. With that, we will move into recognition and good news with Lisa Burton.
Okay, and this evening, we are honoring Black History Month. The student that we had scheduled to share this evening was unable to attend last minute, but I have some wonderful information to share what's happening across our district in a few of our schools this month. Okay, I want to start with Mary Woodward. Last week, I had the opportunity to walk through Mary Woodward, and I was so impressed with the presentation that the 5th grade at Mary Woodward has spread across their school. They have, as you walk in the doors, there's this beautiful kind of display of figures that talk about historical and present day figures. And then they have books from the library. And then as you're walking throughout the building, they have pictures of figures with these little windows that you can open up at the eye level of students. And as you're walking throughout the building, you can read about the person and what they've done in their life and the role they've played in their community. It's just a really, really special way for students to experience Black History Month. And so if you have an opportunity, I just encourage you to go to the school and walk around, and you'll be very impressed. And then Templeton Elementary. I spoke with the Family Partnership Advocate, Caitlin Brown, and she shared that Templeton families are hosting a Tigard Together series, and that's happening year round. But for Black History Month, they're having a celebration made possible in partnership with the community and sponsors, and in collaboration with Quality Middle School. And the event will include music and food and activities, and it's just supposed to be this fabulous celebration across both campuses. And then Tigard High School, our Black Student Union, has these 2 activities that they are hosting. One is coming up this week on the 9th. They're showing a movie, Just Mercy, and on February 9th, and then they're honoring Black History Month during basketball games on February 10th. I also wanted to draw your attention to another student-led interview that happened actually last March, but the Power of Student Voices was a podcast with Talking Tigard. And if you haven't listened to it, it's pretty amazing to hear directly from students about their experiences at Tigard High and their thoughts and ideas and moving forward after experiencing, racism in their own school. And just a couple quotes that I wanted to share that gave me pause were one student shared, we just want to be a safe community for all at Tigard High. And then another student shared, I'm really proud of the great strides my community has made to make a better future for themselves. And I'm proud of the brave Black men and women who have fought for our rights, who really fought for our interests. So I just really encourage everyone in our community to listen to the podcast. It's pretty amazing. And then you can also follow the Black Student Union on Instagram, and they have lots of events and activities and information about what's happening at Tigard High. At Tualatin High School, the Black Student Union is celebrating with several activities. And one of them is there will be producing a segment in the student broadcasting platform highlighting historical figures internationally, nationally, and locally, including interviews with Tualatin High School Black student athlete leaders and Assistant Superintendent Dr. McCall. The segment will air this Wednesday, and we'll send that to all of you so you can listen in. And it plays during the weekly Wolf Time, which is every week to all of the classes. And so the Black Student Union will also be working with their culturally responsive coordinator and associate principal to create a Black History Month PAC lesson, which also happens during that same time during the week. And then they will be hosting a family dinner to honor students and community members. At Fowler Middle School, I just want to read a little bit of Principal Van Fleet's thoughts that he shared with families in the newsletter last week. And he said that they're highlighting accomplishments and contributions of our Black and African American community, and they've asked students what they want to see more of and less of. He says student voices are not only insightful, but inspirational as well. Fowler students are amazing, and we are blessed to have a diverse and thoughtful student community. So they've really tried to engage students in their planning and then just discussion throughout the school. And then finally, I just wanted to share some of what at the district level, Gustavo, our community, in our community relations department is highlighting across our social media this week. Lots of historical figures and current people in leadership and events across the district, and then also what's happening in our libraries and also a lot of literature and books that people can read. So that's a little bit about what's happening across the district, and a lot of the other schools are doing, also engaging their students and staff. And so finally, we do have a resolution this evening, and Tualatin High School Student Board Representative Nasei Lin has agreed to read our resolution for Black History Month.
Whereas in 1915, Dr. Carter Goodwin Woodson, noted Black scholar and son of former slaves, founded the Association for the Study of African American Life and History and initiated the first celebration of Negro History Week on February 7, 1926, which led to the annual celebration of Black History Month. And whereas National Black History Month is a national tradition established in response to the inadequate and oftentimes biased description of Black history and representation of African American communities in history books and school curriculum, and whereas Black History Month shines an annual light on the powerful and continued fight to authentically honor Black Americans for their contributions throughout history. And whereas Tigard-Tualatin School District has board policies that guide us in our commitment to bring our students and community together in conversations of race, as well as ensuring accurate Black history is represented in American history curriculum at all grade levels as practice. And whereas we pledged to study Black history, learn, acknowledge, and disrupt the systems built to hold back our Black citizens, and especially our Black students every day. And whereas the district is working towards eliminating the racial predictability and disproportionality on all aspects of education. And whereas the district collaborates and partners with community-based organizations to further its efforts of forming strong relationships in a culturally appropriate way, and to provide feedback and guidance to district leaders on improving outcomes and providing opportunities for Black Americans and first and second generation African and multicultural youth in the district. And whereas the study of African American life and history has dedicated Black History Month 2022 to honoring Black health and wellness. And whereas we honor contributions of Black health workers throughout history and those who have tirelessly served as frontline workers during the pandemic. And now, therefore, we, the Tigard-Tualatin School Board, do hereby proclaim February 1st through February 28th, 2023, be Black History Month in the Tigard-Tualatin School District. Be it further resolved that the Tigard-Tualatin School District Board of Directors strongly encourages our staff and community to observe, recognize, participate in, and celebrate the culture, heritage, contributions, and events of Black Americans in our country, our state, our cities, and our schools.
And with that, I move to adopt resolution 2223-12 proclaiming February 2023 Black History Month as presented.
I'll second that.
We have our first second by our newest board member. All right, so motion was made by Director Zerschmied and seconded by Director Weston. I know, right. I apologize. Vice Chair Jaimes made the motion, seconded by Director Weston. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And Nase, those resolutions are long and well done. Sometimes it's drawing straws. Like, we love to read them and they're a lot. So thank you for doing that. That was wonderful. All right. So we will roll that right into, and maybe we'll give Nase a quick minute, into the student representatives report. So I'll have Owen perhaps go first.
Finals week finished last week, and it was a nice break to have that Friday off and Thursday being a half day. I know it was probably the most relaxing weekend I've had in a while. So, winter sports are approaching the playoffs, and go Tigers. And then Ethics Club won the State Ethics Bowl over the weekend, so that's pretty awesome for them.
Over at Tualatin, our finals week is also ended, and we have a semester 2 starting up. Our mental health initiative week I mentioned last meeting went pretty well. We had our Take One wall where we put up sticky notes on the wall and with like positive affirmations, and the wall was pretty much empty every single day. We had to spend lots of time writing those affirmations and putting them back on there for students to take. Our Dornbecker pageant is now starting. Our first fundraiser is this Friday at Panda Express in Wilsonville, and 20% of our proceeds go to Dornbecker Children's Hospital. And on the wave of Black History Month, we have some activities in the school, such as the BSU takeover of the Weekly Wolf, which was also previously mentioned, where the BSU will be like taking over the production of our weekly like news system, and we'll be showcasing some amazing things from the school and the community. And there's a Spirit Week next week being put on by the BSU, among other activities and information. In the world of sports, our esports team is starting up. They have Valorant and Overwatch is starting this week, and preseason for League of Legends and Super Mario Splash Bros. They're starting this week, along with other games as well. Our swim team is heading to districts this Friday, and our cheer team is looking strong going into the state championship on this Saturday, I believe, off of back-to-back tournament wins. Our basketball teams are doing pretty well. Our boys are against Tiger this Tuesday and remain number 2 in the state. And our girls are 18-1 and have moved to number 4 in the state. And our wrestling and dance seasons are going also strong as well.
I actually have a question for Owen. Do you happen to know what's involved in an ethics bowl? Because all I can imagine, and the visual I've got in my head is that, there's a group of students and then they put a donut in the middle of the room and then turn off the lights, but I'm sure that's not what it is, so.
Basically what it is like you get like a list of like 12 ethical problems and like a page long each, and you kind of spend months before reviewing it and kind of formulating your, it's kind of like almost speech and debate. And you get the questions beforehand and you basically debate it with a bunch of other schools. And this is the first time in a long time that Tigard has formed a team. So it definitely shocks some other schools like Jesuit and Lake Ridge, which are usually the usual winners.
I was can I build off that in my board update?
Yes, you may.
Okay.
All right. So after that, we will move to superintendent and board communications, Dr. Riggy Smith.
Thank you, Chair. This evening, I start by acknowledging the horrific tragedy that's unfolding in Turkey and Syria and the thousands of lives that have been lost in the aftermath of the earthquake. Our hearts are with the citizens navigating the devastation of their communities and with everyone here in our TTSD community who have family and friends in the regions. For any TTSD family impacted by this disaster or anyone that knows a family impacted, our schools have support systems in place to assist. Please reach out to your school. And you heard this evening about the many ways our staff and our students are celebrating Black history in our schools this month. I want to recognize and thank our equity and inclusion team, including our culturally responsive liaisons and coordinators for their support and mentorship of our students, helping to bring these important celebrations to life. My thanks to our administrators and staff for their continued efforts to elevate voices and bring rich and meaningful cultural education into their buildings. And I would be remiss not to welcome Board Director Weston. You are joining a dedicated and talented board of directors committed to equity of educational outcomes for all Tigard-Tualatin students. And I look forward to supporting your work as the newest director of the Tigard-Tualatin School District.
Thank you.
All right, board members.
So I just wanted to build off of Owen's. So my understanding from my source at Tigard High School is that this is the only time a public school has won the Oregon State Ethics Bowl other than Lincoln High School ever. So this is like if we won an OSAA state championship, but it was also the second time a public school had ever won. So I think it's really a big deal and we're celebrating for those students. So thank you, Owen, for highlighting that this evening. I'm sure other board directors will mention this, but spent some time with my colleagues this past weekend at the Oregon School Boards Association Washington County Legislative Summit. And I actually feel like that was the most organized our county has been, at least in my time on the board. Huge shout out to Maureen Wolf, who continues to help us punch above our weight class. But it was a group of legislators meeting with school board members and superintendents from across the region, talking, I would say, primarily about budget issues, but also about some of the other policy issues. Assessment was a big topic at my table. So I think it's really important that we continue to do that. And then the second thing, in fact, perhaps Director Moore will have an update about this at some point, but the governor's recommended budget is out and it is a $9.9 billion state school fund. So for those keeping track at home, that's 400 million more than what the state analysts claimed was the current service level, but 400 million less than what our own business officials statewide say is the current service level. So for us, that's a cuts budget. That would require us to make cuts. So I think worthy of further discussion. That isn't necessarily what the number will be from the legislature, but it is an important mark in the legislative session. And historically, we've done legislative updates at the end of the legislative session. I remember when Rep. Doherty and Senator Burdick would come and present, but because I'm wearing two hats, I just wanted to give an update on 3 bills because they are very relevant to this district. And in fact, would not have happened without the work of this district and the folks in our cabinet. There were 3 public hearings today on legislative concepts that I brought forward. One was about school start times and creating a task force that would provide recommendations for the legislature. Ultimately, sort of modeled off of what we did here. And I know Director Amber Fields and some other administrators were central in making that happen. And it wasn't me who was citing TTSD in this testimony. It was other folks, advocates for sleep. There's a lot of research that when kids sleep in or start school later, academic outcomes are better. We had a pediatrician who testified about all the significant health impacts. And we also had an assistant district attorney talk about the decline in crime that he anticipates when students get extra sleep and start school later. So kudos to the TTSD team. That was not a board action. That was a district administration move. So grateful for that. The second was about removing pay to play fees. We don't have to talk about that. We spent plenty of time talking about that. And then the third one, just for your all's awareness, I will not benefit from this, but I hope some of you will. It is a bill that would allow school boards to provide stipends to board members for their service to help offset the cost of childcare, transportation, other items that hopefully would make it a little bit easier for members of our community to serve and hopefully help us build a board that better reflects the community that we intend to serve. So I just want to give those 3 little plugs because they're particularly relevant for the work we do here. And that's all I got. Thank you.
So all of us were actually at the Washington County Summit. So I'm not going to repeat, but since I was at a different table than you and I'm going before them, I can rat out my table. We were fortunate we had a representative, legislative assistant for Aaron Woods, and also we had Courtney Neuron at our table, as well as a board member from Shorewood. And we had a really great conversation, much about the budget, much about what CSL looks like. One of the things that Courtney Neuron is, of course, working on is getting the CSL to actually reflect what we think the CSL is, current service level for people in the audience. Sorry, acronym city here. Because the state believes that that current service level number is a different number than what we in the school district believe we need to do our work next year. And it was a wonderful conversation. I agree, it was one of the best legislative summits we've had in quite a while. The other thing I just wanted to let my fellow board members know, and my superintendent know, this morning I did file to run for re-election for my school board seat. And so those filing period is now open, and it will be open until March 16th. So any community members, like I said earlier, who do want to run for board, it's a little bit harder than being appointed. Ben's laughing. But that is, those filings are open until the 16th, and there are 2 other positions that are open for election, for a total of 3.
Jeez, what am I gonna say now? Yeah, no. Okay, so my last 2 weeks have been full of professional development, both for my employment as well as for this, because they both go together. I've attended the COSA, the Coalition of Oregon's Superintendents and Administrators, no, something like that, yeah. And the Office of Central Office Administrators, their conference, where we got a good education on just what the buzz was going to be about when the governor released her budget and how that all was going to turn out and whether it was going to be a grim outlook or a good outlook. And so that kind of prepared me mentally for what was to come. And then the budget got dropped, and as our colleague here said, it was better than expected, obviously not where we needed to be. And I invite everybody to write and advocate and call their reps, one being right here, to get us to the level of funding that we need, which is the 10.3, so that we don't have any, or that we can use some of our funds to just kind of keep our current service level, right? Because that's not really what it will take to fully fund our schools, as we know our schools are underfunded. So we do but we do the best that we can with what we get. And the closer we are to 10.3, the better it's going to be for us, which would mean less cuts to our programs, things like that. So so I implore all of you out there in the public sector to advocate and to call your legislators. I also attended the Oregon Association Association of Latino Administrators, and they had a conference as well. And that was great to be amongst other Latino administrators, as well as learning from Yuji Morales. I don't know if you guys know, she is a author that authored the book Dreamers for our K-5. It's in most of our libraries at TTSD. I know because I used to teach and it was in our library. So I used to teach that book to my students. And then, like as my colleague said, we attended the meeting with the legislators. And one of the things that I think impacted me the most at the end was the fact that we don't want to perpetuate this narrative of how we're not graduating our kids at the rate that, or at a increasing rate, right? We've been going at a steady increase, and we're still seeing that trend line of an increase in our graduation outcomes. And so I know that there's a lot of press out there saying that in education, we're failing our students or we're not graduating them. But in Oregon, we've been doing a really good job of following a trend of increasing those graduation rates. And I know that our high schools, both of our high schools, did a really great job this year. And shout out to our Tualatin High School, because unfortunately they beat Tigard, but I don't know if that counts for your the score that you're trying to keep over there, but I think it's a good it's a good problem to have. And I also attended my kiddo's color guard competition, which we had Miss McKee come and advocate for her program, and it was actually pretty cool. It's a really good program, and I really hope that we find better ways of funding that program in the future.
Well, now that there's nothing left I've been striking out everything. Oh, can't say that, but there are a few more things. I still have many things, but I will keep it brief. So the main sort of highlight for me was that legislative summit, and a couple of things that I will add, particularly Representative Neron. So she was at our table, and another really robust conversation was around the universal food and meals and the nutrition program for that. And there is a House bill that is being developed for that. And one thing that I thought was helpful as part of that dialogue was really understanding this is a really important thing, but we want to make sure there aren't any unintended consequences of, there's data that we keep from some of those numbers when we're looking at the free and reduced meals program. And so how do we do both? It's an also and thing. We don't want to sort of take away the data that we need that helps service other programs, but also we really want to make sure that all of our kids all the time are getting food in their meals. And then there were a couple other ones. There was a special education bill, and then sort of adjusting the poverty weight bill that were also, I think, be interesting to keep an eye on. And then our Director Bowman did not talk about the Imagination Library, but I am very excited about that because I kind of followed that for several years. And so if you don't know, you can look up Dolly Parton and her Imagination Library, but it's a fantastic program. And I'm excited to see where that goes. And then to Vice Chair Jaime's point, I think what was important, what Superintendent Goldman was saying at the end was really a lot of times people will sort of spout these ideas around assessments and scores and we're not doing well, and really to kind of disrupt that narrative and kind of have some context like we do with our kiddos in our classes. Like what is the full picture and what are all the numbers meaning, and really to have an understanding of what those numbers mean in terms of assessments and who's not taking them because the state has allowed for opt-outs. And so kind of adjusting the understanding of what those numbers look like, because really we're doing really well. And so that was a really interesting conversation piece as well. And then it was just nice to have an opportunity to talk with legislators about sort of our district impacts and what would happen if we don't hit that magic number that we're all going to be crossing our fingers for. And I think it was helpful that the governor did say that she knew there would be robust conversations happening after she announced that number. And so that tells me that there is potential room for increasing that. And so, yeah, that was the main piece there. And I would also like to officially welcome myself, Director Weston, to the table here, and really just so thankful that you are here and you are with us, and really excited to work with you.
Thank you so much.
And if you want to say anything during board, you don't have to, but you can if you would like to.
Thank you, Board Chair Irvin. And I just want to take the opportunity to express my thanks to the other board members for this opportunity to serve. And also, it's an honor for my first official active in this role to be supporting Black History Month. So thank you for that, and looking forward to serving with you all.
Did you text your family that you won't be home for dinner? They're wondering where you are.
I abandoned my phone across the room, but I'll figure it out.
One would hope that they're watching the live stream and that they know.
And Chair, relative to Vice Chair's statement around graduation rates at the next board meeting, the February 27th meeting, we will, as part of my second quarter goals report, Secondary Director Fields will be presenting the high school graduation data as well as the end of first semester data.
Sorry, I hope I didn't steal your thunder.
Not at all. There's plenty more.
All right, and then Patty, I'm looking at our list and confirming we have no public comment for agenda items. All right, and then with that, we will move to reports and discussion, and it would be an AVID program update with Laura Kintz.
Good evening, Board Chair Irvin, distinguished members of the board, Dr. Ricky Smith, and distinguished cabinet members. My name is Laura Kintz, and I am currently serving as Associate Director of Teaching and Learning. I'm very proud to be back in Tigard-Tualatin School District after leaving to serve staff, students, and families in Southern California for 6 years. I'm here tonight with Catherine Stillwell, who will share with you some encouraging news about AVID and TTSD. This program is an elective at Fowler, Hazelbrook, and Tualatin Middle Schools, as well as Tigard and Tualatin High Schools. I am new to the AVID program, but very impressed by all that our students are learning in AVID classrooms and by their teachers who support them to educational success and equity. TTSD has partnered with AVID since 2013, and this program continues to serve our primarily first-generation college-bound students meet their college and career goals. Ms. Stillwell serves as Life Readiness Coordinator and AVID District Director. This is her second year working in our district as AVID Director and has done a phenomenal job leading the program and supporting staff and students. I would like Ms. Stillwell to now come forward. And I present Ms. Stillwell.
Thank you very much, Laura and board members, for having me here. This is my first time presenting to the board, so I'm nervous and excited. And particularly excited that I get to talk to you tonight about AVID. So AVID, for those of you who don't know, stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. And tonight I'm going to talk to you about what AVID is, how it's supporting our students. Our students are going to speak directly to you through video and tell you what they love about AVID, and then tell you kind of what we're hoping is up next for us in the AVID programming. So rather than me droning on and on about what AVID is, our Tualatin High School students have created a short video to talk to you about it and their experience with the program. So they were so excited to be able to present to you, but they were also, like me, a little bit nervous. So please bear with us as they have some prepared statements that they're going to read off of at times. Would you play the video, please?
AVID is especially helpful to first-generation students by encouraging them to be the first in their family to go to college. AVID exposes first-generation students to college expectations and norms to help them feel prepared for the future. Also, AVID's cultural and diverse support can make first-generation students from around the world feel welcomed and supported.
AVID, our students are given an opportunity to figure out what career they want to pursue. First-gen students in our program are able to learn and apply their knowledge from AVID to aid in the scholarship and college application process.
AVID contributes to our everyday lives by encouraging community building by working together with peers. It also helps us manage stress by assisting us in starting and working through the college application process and educating us about what to anticipate and pay attention to when looking at college.
All right, so thank you to our 12 high school students for putting that together. Just to kind of summarize what they were talking about, I know it was a little bit hard to hear. I'm sorry about that. AVID provides scaffolded support that educators and students need to encourage college and career readiness and success. It's an elective program for first-generation college students primarily, who fall within the academic middle to prepare them to meet their college and career goals. It's not just an elective program, though. It also has school-wide offerings, providing evidence-based and best practice instructional strategies and helping educators to change practice to keep students with potential on the track to advanced courses and develop and sustain staff belief that all students can succeed. Next slide, please. So in 2019, several of the directors in TTSD decided to do an evaluation of AVID's programming. They did an audit, and the results of that evaluation provided the following recommendations: to establish a coherent vision for AVID and TTSD, establish and coordinate AVID activities with a district work group, connect a school-specific budgeting process to program plans, consider amplifying the reach of the AVID elective, and follow decision rules for participating AVID students. In the last year and a half, we have met all of these goals and then some. So our current reality, we could jump to the next slide, thank you. Our current reality in the district is that AVID is a robust elective in all 5 comprehensive secondary schools, and it serves as a toolbox of resources to support the TTSD CCRE framework. The designated TOSA, hi, that's me, and Associate Director of Teaching and Learning, we work together to coordinate programming across the district to make sure that we're staying aligned to both AVID's goals as well as the district's goals. Our site coordinators meet monthly and work on horizontal and vertical alignment to establish that across all 5 schools so that when middle schoolers enter, their freshman year teachers know that they're entering with similar skill sets and can start building on that foundation altogether. We're working on, the budget is more transparent and cohesive than it has been in the past. And our decision rules are in place with an emphasis on interviews and recommendations. Students do have to apply to be in the program, but the application is not where it stops. The interview is a really important part of the process, and students also get recommendations from teachers and other adults in their lives to say that this would be a program that would be good for them. Recruitment has also expanded. So what does that mean for our AVID students? Currently, we have 375 students in grades 7 through 12 that are being served by the AVID elective alone. That doesn't include all of the students who are receiving strategies from their teachers in their general education classes. We've also absorbed the Upward Bound students who are, when Upward Bound was unfortunately dissolved, we absorbed many of those students into our AVID programming. And we are now the only program in the district that is explicitly focused on first-generation college students. Beyond just what we do in Tigard-Tualatin School District, AVID has provided some statistics, done some studies on what this looks like across the nation. Specifically, the AVID elective helps build pro-social behaviors, more likely to engage with peers who are also engaging in positive learning outcomes, attending class, more engaged in school. It also helps decrease the likelihood of students engaging in any kind of substance abuse or delinquency. And then specifically, male students have reported reduced stress and increased self-efficacy and school engagement. These social emotional aspects are things that the AVID elective really builds on, and our male students see incredible benefits from that. Next slide, please. In 2020, 65% of TTSD AVID graduates enrolled in 2- or 4-year school, compared to 62% nationally. These statistics are for 2020, so I recognize that that is not necessarily the number we might be hoping for, but you know, pandemic. So as we move forward, we'll look to see these numbers increasing as the world stabilizes a little bit. That said, 80% of those students have persisted to either completion of a 2-year program or stayed enrolled in their 4-year program, compared to 79% nationally. So even with all of the unfortunateness, our AVID students have been able to enroll in higher rates and persist at higher rates. The class of 2021, 100% of our students graduate, our AVID students graduated high school. 92% completed the requirements for entering a 4-year college. 94% completed the FAFSA. 89% plan to attend college or university after high school. 81% took at least one IB class. 78% are first-generation college students, and 50% are multi-language learners. We do not yet have persistence data for this graduating year because it's only the next year. But as we continue with the programming and building our data sets, we'll be able to see long-term outcomes for what this program is doing for our students. It also bears mentioning that Tualatin is in their first year of implementation, and 100% of their 7th graders plan to stay in the program next year. So major props to our Tualatin team. This next one is pretty exciting. For Tigard High School alone, just so far this year, our AVID students have garnered $1.844 million in scholarships. So really, really changing some lives over here. So really proud of our students. And also thank you to the Tigard High team for supporting, supplying us with that data. All right. Now for the part you probably have been waiting for, the love notes from our students. So I'll stop talking and you can listen to our Fowler Middle School and Tigard High School students as they share their thoughts on why AVID.
Hello, my name is Fernando Rivera Castillo, and I'm in 12th grade. My favorite AVID memory is going to Portland State with my friends and just exploring the college itself. I had actually never gone to Portland a lot, even though my dad used to work there. And seeing the college and the campus and learning about how they have a flea market and all that good stuff, and they can teach you, well, I'm trying to learn Japanese and they have a Japanese class there. So for me, that's a huge goal, a huge score. And the donuts there that are nearby, that's the best part.
Hi, my name is Mauro, and I'm in 7th grade, and I'm an AVID student. AVID has helped me to make my grades better and also get confident. My favorite part of AVID is when we get to talk in groups and you share our thoughts.
I'm Savina Otis, and I'm a senior at Tigard High School. So my family's actually been a part of AVID for a very long time. When I was in 6th grade, my brothers were a part of AVID for the longest time, from freshman year to senior year, and now I'm here for my senior year, and it's pretty good, and it's helped me with my social skills. It helps me with college applications and helped me prep for big tests like the ACT. It's helped me a lot making connections with other people.
Hello, my name's Eddie, and just one thing I really enjoy about AVID is being able to collaborate with one another, being able to create a bond for the past 4 years I've been in it. Just like being able to go to one another before we go to an adult or teacher.
Hi, I'm Delilah Isabella, and I'm an AVID student. I feel successful about my future because AVID helped me stay organized and helped me stay on schoolwork and my grades.
Hi, I'm Sydney. I'm a 12th grade student at AVID in Tigard High School. I think my biggest, one of the things I really liked about AVID junior year was being able to go to the campuses. I went to U of O and OSU, those are the 2 ones I went to, and they just really helped me figure out what I wanted to do for school, or what I expected out of school. On my spring break, I was able to go visit some other campuses in my free time, and because I went to OSU and U of O during those trips, I was able to figure out what I wanted from a campus and know what I expected from the college that I want to go to, so I think it really gave me a good basis to go off of.
Hi, my name is Kaylee. I'm a 7th grade AVID student. AVID has been something I've always wanted to do ever since I was in 5th grade and I heard about it. I always wanted to get into AVID, and I feel like it means really important to me now that I'm in AVID, because I feel like I have a better chance of getting to college, because I would really stress about college and I know I don't have the money for it. So now I feel like I have a better chance of getting a scholarship and stuff like that.
Hi, I'm Kiara, and I'm a 12th grade AVID student. I used to be in Upward Bound, but unfortunately last year, or last summer was the last summer we had the opportunity to be together. So I was super fortunate to have the opportunity to become an AVID student, and so life can get pretty busy, and just having that designated time to be able to get my college applications done would be impossible without AVID, especially Mrs. Hodgson has helped me immensely. I'm a Questbridge Scholarship Program finalist, so I had the opportunity to apply to 15 schools in only 4 days, which was super difficult, but Mrs. Hodgson stayed with me to the end. That very last day, she stayed 2 hours after school just to help me on my final applications, which I will forever be grateful for.
All right, and there is one more written statement that I'll share with you in addition to those wonderful videos. This Tigard High School student said, "My happiest memories while in school have always been in an AVID classroom. AVID, which is a program not talked about enough, has become a home and a family for me in the past 4 years. The memories I made with some of my closest friends in that class are memories I will not make again. It is an experience that I will be forever grateful for. I felt safe in that class knowing I was surrounded by people going through a similar experience to mine, and I am so lucky to have had time with everyone in AVID. I believe that the AVID program has taught me some of the most important life skills that I will always carry with me." So thank you very much to our students for sharing that with us. So what's next for AVID in our district? We believe that AVID is successful if students are prepared for life after high school. That's where our college and career readiness programming comes in.
Students develop academic and metacognitive skills. Those are the academic outcomes we're looking for. Students feel confident and connected to their peers and teachers, and we're seeing that sense of belonging, as many of the students talked about their friends and the support that they received in class. The current data that we have shows both areas for growth and areas of success. We will continue to analyze and build on that data set to ensure that we're constantly improving and building upon our students' success. Our goals are to increase the use of AVID resources to support growth across all secondary schools. Our instructional coaches are exploring and sharing resources already. We're going to develop district-wide activities that support cross-age interaction and support within the AVID elective. We're also looking to increase family and community engagement within the AVID elective. We currently have a lot of field trips, but they're all school-specific rather than district-wide. So we're hoping to create field trips as well as things like a family picnic to build that larger AVID community within TTSD. We're also hoping to improve access to career-related experiences. You heard several of the students talk about going on trips to colleges. The program has done a really amazing job of taking students to colleges all across the state, but we would like to improve our access to career-specific information. And then finally, to continue to work on that clearly aligned elective curriculum so that it's aligned both horizontally and vertically. And that is it. If you have any additional questions, feel free to email me at the email address provided or Laura at the other email address provided. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Before you, well, do we have any questions or comments before?
I do have one question.
Yeah.
The student who mentioned the Upward Bound program reminded me, we lost that grant, and so we can no longer have that program. Is that a grant that we are trying for again? Or is it just, is that grant no longer available?
So currently, no, that's not something that we are pursuing. That's not to say that we won't, but at this point in time, we haven't pursued that for this particular summit. So.
Are we doing anything with AVID Excel for our multilingual learners?
Not currently, no.
Do we have any plans on doing anything with AVID Excel?
I know that there has been a small, one of the middle schools used AVID Excel curriculum very briefly. That is something we've been talking about, but there are not any official plans in the works to make that happen. A lot of the AVID Excel strategies are woven into the AVID elective as a whole. And so, as you saw, 50% of our enrollees are multilingual learners. And so with our limited funding, unfortunately, going beyond and adding additional electives is not within the realm of possibility, but growing the program as a whole is definitely something we're talking about. And I think the AVID Excel program would be an amazing addition to that. It really just comes down to funding.
I have a couple questions. Any others?
I have just a quick comment. I saw one of my teachers in there, Miss Armstrong from Tualatin. I just wanted to note out how much of an amazing person she is, as a teacher. It just reminds me of that, like how these amazing students have amazing teachers to match their passions, and that helps them with their rest of their career.
Thank you for sharing.
So I love the AVID program, and I think it's such an incredibly valuable and important one. And I loved the young woman that said, I always wanted to get into AVID. And I think that is a testament to the people that are really creating this program, because it is something to be sought after. And I think it's sort of, in so many ways, whether it was the Upward Bound, AVID, I'm thinking of the 9GS squad program. I mean, there are all of these things that we're really normalizing, these other options that create success, and they create a sense of belonging and value for our students. And so I think it's wonderful. I think she could not have said that better, because I'm looking forward to this. It's not something like, oh, I have to go in this, or my teacher says that I should do this X, Y, and Z. So I really love that. And I'm really impressed that you met all your goals from the previous presentation. So there's a lot to be commended for that as well. I did have a quick question just in terms of when we're looking at 8th graders and sort of what is the overlap or the difference between the 9GS program and AVID, and sort of, is there overlap? Is there collaboration in those programs? Are you taking, you know, specific kind of different kiddos and kind of putting them in those 2 different programs, or how does that work exactly?
9GS.
So that's like the 9th grade's like on track success squad.
Gotcha. So as far as I know, we target different groups. And so I'm sure the strategies are similar. And I know that we've had conversations about the similarities, but they are very different programs and serving different groups of students.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any other? All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And we will get a hold of you if you have more questions.
Thanks very much.
All right, and up next is Director Rose. And Principal Bailey.
Good evening, Chair Irvin, Vice Chair Heine's, directors, welcome, Director Weston. Students, we are here this evening. Each year, the board guides us and approves the number of transfers that we take in from out of district and that we release each year. And we are here this evening to give you a report on how last year has gone based on the decisions that were made. I have Principal Brian Bailey with me this evening to give you a high school perspective, as it has quite an impact on our high school, and start the conversation this evening to come back later this month to make a direction on where we will go for next year with the process. Next slide. Tonight, we're going to do an overview of the full transfer process, review the 22-23 transfer process as of December, through December. You have received in your packet a lot of data relative to in-district and inter-district transfers, as well as the ODE 3% calculation report. We will hear from the high school perspective and then discuss some options for consideration for moving into next year's transfer process. Slide, please. So in-district transfers for the district are resident student transfers between TTSD schools. Inter-district transfers guided by House Bill 2747 rules and procedures for implementing transfers between school districts. Next slide, please. So this year you saw in your packets, you had a report on where we are as of December 31st for our in-district transfers. The process is the families submit their applications online, principals review and make recommendation relative to approval of those transfers. If approved, a student may attend that selected school through the highest grade, being 5th or 8th. And then the application must be resubmitted if that student wants to stay on that particular feeder pattern as they advance into middle and then high school. Next slide, please. So as of December 16th, which was our last day before break, we had 633 students who are on an in-district transfer. That includes continuing students. If you see in the spreadsheets that you received, we have a number of continuing students, and then it has the number of in-district students this year. Of that, 310 are elementary level, 53 at the middle level, 270 at high school level, and of those 270, 170 of those are attending Creekside, have opted into Creekside. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Is that it? Okay, thank you. Sorry. Incoming students for interdistrict transfers this year. Last year, a reminder, the board approved 50 spots in, 50 spots out on a first served basis. This year, incoming students, we are at 64 of those. 32 are continuing students and siblings. Of that are 32 new students to our district. 0 hardship applications at this point because we have not reached our 50 that we agreed upon. The release students at this point are 91, of which 61 continuing students and siblings, 30 new students, and 0 hardships. So when on your report, if you're looking at your report, you can see the trends relative to how many continuing students, the continuing students graduate out, how many are continuing from, as this year's 30 students will be continuing students in that data next year. Next slide, please. Looking at the reports, you will see, especially for inter-district transfers, students coming into the district and students leaving the district. We have quite an imprint on high school. That tends to be where we have the most conversations around who's coming into the district and who's leaving. Thought it would be important this evening for you to actually hear. Brian has been a partner in this work, constantly seeking his advice and hearing his opinions relative to how this process is working at the high school level. So I thought it would be important for you all to hear from him.
Okay, well, thanks for letting me join tonight and partner with Tracy and explore kind of the high school perspective of what this looks like. There's kind of a few main points that I'd like to make tonight relative to my experience as a high school principal. One of which that is kind of overarching. My partner in crime across the district, Principal Delurba, and I talk quite often about how it's actually more challenging to transfer within our district than it is to leave. And we've worked continually since he and I started partnering together 3.5 years ago to continually refine our process, to communicate with one another and really kind of build a system for review and approval of our in-district transfer requests. And so whether it's between Tigard High School and Tualatin High School or between Tigard High School and TTVA, we engage in a conversation at the adult level with, we review the requests. We immediately respond first via email, sometimes but via phone. What are the issues? How can we support this family? What is the best need for what is the best fit for this family? Maybe there are some supports that are lacking in their homeschool that we need to try that before we jump to a change of location, so on and so forth. There's a process that runs to it that is based on consistent communication. In the current policy that we've adopted for several years in our district and other districts around, if somebody chooses to leave our district and they're within that 50, there is no conversation. And therefore, there is no support for those students or for those families, whether they're coming in or they're coming out, they're landing or they're leaving without any sort of comprehensive discussion about how we can best support the families. And so where I see this play out a couple of different ways in high schools, we also have an additional competing interest at the high school level, which is athletics. And one of the issues that has hit home at Tigard High School in particular a few times this last year is that of the OSAA eligibility. And OSAA eligibility, there is a hardship eligibility process. So if somebody were to come to us and demonstrate a hardship that would necessitate a transfer to another district through that process, there are still steps that they can take to be athletically eligible. However, if we believe that their sole purpose in transferring out of Tigard High School is based on athletics, and they are within our current policy of free release, there is no eligibility conversation, there is no hardship, they are automatically deemed eligible to go participate for a coach that maybe isn't at the same ethical level that we would like our TTSD coaches to be at when it comes to recruiting athletes. I'll add to that we are in a really interesting time in high school athletics in the state of Oregon and across the country. The transfer portal at the college level has opened up this notion and this idea that if I don't get what I'm looking for athletically in my home school, I will seek another opportunity. And there are coaches out there that, in spite of OSAA guidance, are actively recruiting our young people to participate in athletics in their schools. The OSAA will tell you they are only a governing body. They will leave the enforcement of their guidelines up to the individual schools and the districts. The truth of the matter is, we're not able to do that. We're not going to be able to go check an address, sit at somebody's house to see if they're actually residing where they say they're residing. And so these schools and these coaches and ultimately our students are finding those loopholes and they're taking advantage of them and they're coming or going based on athletics. And that is a scary notion for me to consider as a former, I coached high school athletics for 16 years. My view and my vision of what high school athletics is all about is competing, participating, working, learning, growing with my peers, with the people that I grew up with my kids in my neighborhood, so on and so forth. And now it is becoming chasing scholarships, chasing rings, chasing championships, rather than have it be a school-based athletic experience within our programming. They're taking advantage of some of those loopholes. The other thing that is happening beyond the athletics, it's something that I think as a school district we ought to consider. We, like many other schools and districts in the state of Oregon and beyond, are seeing a decrease in enrollment. With a decrease in enrollment comes a decrease in funding, as is currently set up by the state on the per student basis. So we are essentially in the current policy saying it is okay for 50 new students every year to leave. And while we don't do this for the money, we require the money in order to provide the services that we do. And we're also saying goodbye to that per student allocation. So I think just financially speaking as a district, I think it's something that we need to reconsider and that we need to do anything and everything we can to boost our student enrollment so that we could sustain the phenomenal programs like the one that we just heard about earlier. And that's going to be harder to do if we're just having a blanket case for students and families to leave our district. The final piece that I would say is that there are times when it is absolutely the right move for a student and a family to find a new sense of purpose and a new sense of belonging in an environment that works better for them. And we don't want to arbitrarily get in the way of that either. And so what we would recommend, and what I would recommend from my perspective, is something similar to what Principal DeLurba and Principal DeWolf and I have created at the high school level, where there is a review panel. There is an opportunity for somebody to express their hardship and their desire to go somewhere else. And there is an active role from the school leaders in the district to review that and help that student and help that family find their best place, whether it be in TTSD or not. We should help them do that. And that's our commitment to kids. To arbitrarily just open up 50 spots leaves us open to too many other reasons why they're leaving.
Next slide, please. 2 slides. Keep going, please. Thank you. So the conversation now is around considerations, and what has guided us is the equitable process. We had a conversation last year around the 50 in, 50 out. Really was, before that was 20 in, 20 out for a few years, and what that is folks that are sitting there ready when the day comes that we open up the transfer process to be able to submit the application and get themselves in line. It does not, there are some concerns, continues to be some concerns on whether or not that is really an equitable process. Some districts do lottery. We'll get to that in a moment. The impact on the schools and programs, as Brian has just talked about, and then enrollment, current versus historical, which I've also provided that report for you to take a look at. We'd also like to have some consideration relative to timeline. We have principals that would very much like our process to open up earlier. And therefore, once we come back for the second read and get approval of the process for next year, we'll be ready to open up and get going at the beginning of March, so that all of the conversations that are happening relative to transitions and kindergarten and all of that will be easier for our school buildings. Next slide, please. So some options for consideration and conversation. We could stay with the current process that we've had, where there's been an equal number welcomed in as welcomed out. First in would be, we would stay status quo, or we could consider a lottery and what that would look like. Hardship only And we know that several of our neighboring districts are now on hardship only. We learned that quite a bit with some of the students that wanted to come into TTSD this year, and we were unable to approve those transfers because they were denied at their home district. I was able to have a conversation on Friday with ODE relative to the question was, could we have an identified number of students that would be incoming students from out of district and have our release be hardship only? And they said yes. So that is also an option for us, that we would be hardship. And I would say I represent Principal Delurba a bit on and I'm sure Brian can talk to this as well, but the having to have a student prove a hardship does not feel comfortable. But we know our students. So the conversation around hardship when we're releasing students would be easy for us because we have access to that information and we know those students. So again, that would be identifying a number of students that we would welcome into the district. We would go hardship only on release. Then the last two we talked about a little bit last year as well, is having an unlimited number that we would accept in and out between, say, March and June, or there are districts that just leave their process open all year long.
So if I can just speak just one additional piece on that third bullet that Tracy talked about, and I have firsthand experience from this year with a student who was appealing their home district to try to transfer into TTSD. They needed to demonstrate a hardship in their district. They were asking us to support their hardship, and this was a student that we don't have relationship with, we don't have context with. We couldn't have that conversation with them. And so the identified number of incoming removes that barrier of demonstrating a hardship to the adults in the situation that don't have the context and don't have the history. But for those that we do know and we have the relationship with those families, that we could support those hardship appeals for the outgoing.
So I know you have a lot of information that we provided to you. The only other thing that I would point out is in the enrollment report that I provided. You also see the enrollment report that we have that comes out each month. We are seeing that some of our schools, although their enrollment may not quite have recovered completely from COVID, we have some fourth grade classes, fifth grade classes that are at a ratio of 28-30 right now, where we will start taking a look at individual school buildings, especially around elementary, where we wouldn't be accepting transfer requests because of the capacity. So at that point, I would really like to turn it over to you for any questions or conversation around options. Dr. Bowman?
Thank you both. I really appreciate the presentation, and Principal Bailey, I think the perspective was really important. And this is an aside, but I think it is important to start here. I'm glad that we are behaving with integrity, and I hope all of our coaches are not engaging in that kind of behavior. And I also hope that if we're aware of other schools doing that, I hope we file complaints with OSAA, even if they claim that they can't do anything. I'm a big booster of high school athletics. I know most of us are, but that is just so wrong on so many levels and teaching the wrong lessons to our kids. So what a bummer that that has to be part of this conversation, I guess is my starting point. And we live in reality. So I guess my reflections from what you're saying are, and this is, I guess, what I would say to the board. Lottery seems more fair than first in, if we're going to keep that methodology. But it seems like your recommendation is probably leaning towards number 3, identified number incoming with hardship only release. And I think I support that as well. With my one question or maybe comment, and we've talked about this in past board meetings, but refresh my memory, what would qualify as hardship? Is there a rubric we use? Like how flexible? Because I don't want to keep students and families who don't want to be here, and I know you don't either, but I don't want to set us in a position where we're stuck. So how would that work?
There are very specific rules around what a hardship is on the website, and I can pull that up and get it to all of you. But very specifically, they have to meet the criteria laid out by ODE. of what a hardship is. And we use that to guide us in all the decisions that we're making, even with the in-district transfers. If it's a hardship, they have to qualify, and it's typically around childcare. Help me.
I think
I can look
think
it
if
up. I'll
there's
look.
documented bullying and harassment.
Yeah.
Would something along the lines of, I'm not happy in this educational environment and I don't feel like they can be successful, meet the threshold, or perhaps not?
Mostly not.
Okay.
I say that knowing that there could be some extenuating circumstances as to why they're not happy with the environment. So but mostly not.
And I would say from my work is usually I let the principals have the conversation about the request, and then we process the transfer. Very rarely will I seek to make a different decision. I always will be guided by what the principals are saying, and it's a really wonderful process. A really respectful process. There are lots of conversations. I know that Brian's had some special situations this year. Ryan Taylor has also been involved in the decision-making and approval process. And it's just really a privilege to watch them help do what's best for students.
I guess my final thought here would then be, God, this is really challenging. I think at the very least, if a student is, I don't like in our current process, as you described it, this sort of automatic release. That seems like a big problem because at the very least, we don't get the data on what's driving that decision, if only for self-improvement purposes for our own schools. So I think there should be some sort of process on the outgoing side. It seems like hardship is the one that is probably most defined. And I don't want to keep kids and families here who don't want to be here. So that doesn't solve any problems, but I appreciate what you presented and I agree with the direction you've outlined.
And Director Bowman, hardship transfer requests, number 1, the student is impacted by a parent or guardian's military deployment. Number 2, the student is experiencing instability related to homelessness or foster care placement. 3, the student has a documented medical condition that necessitates a transfer. 4, death of a student's parent. 5, the student does not have access to safe and affordable childcare in the resident district. Or 6, the student is involved in a documented case of severe harassment, intimidation, bullying, or cyberbullying.
And can you just clarify, where does continuing siblings fall in this conversation? Would they still be allowed outside of the hardship, or would they be, if we don't have the however many releases, would that also be stopped?
Anyone as of through this school year would be considered a continuing student. We have, once we approve a request into the district, they're ours until 12th grade, which would include their siblings. So this conversation would be students moving forward.
And so the whole concept of a continuing student would be gone in a year's time. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes.
So for the case of a student whose parents divorce and one parent moves to a house outside of the district, and then the student has to decide, do I live with mom in the new district or do I stay with dad in my old district? How does that get resolved in this new?
Almost like you were having a conversation with us on Friday.
So honestly, what that really comes down to is less of 9 times out of 10, that's less of a transfer issue and more of determination based on custodial records from the courts. And if it's 50-50 custodial delegation, then they get to choose. And we currently have that practice in all of our districts right now anyway. And so that wouldn't change at all.
So that would not count as a continuing student?
That would, if, let's say if the student's mom lived in Beaverton and dad moved to TTSD and they had 50-50 custody and they chose to enroll under dad's address, that's not considered in any of our transfer documentation. It's just a new enrollment, just as if the whole family picked up and moved to Tigard.
Okay, but what about the case where it's not 50-50, say so that the non-custodial parent is the one who's within the school district that the student used to be in, and the student says, I want to stay with my friends because I'm in the middle of this traumatic experience with my parents.
Almost, yeah, almost all of those are taken into consideration by the judge, and the judge in their custody agreement will dictate the district most often that they are asked to enroll in. So our registrars at the school level in all of our buildings become very good at reading custodial paperwork from the courts.
An unusual skill set that they never knew they were going to get.
Yep.
Thank you.
I echo a lot of what Director Bowman said as well, and kind of looking at that third option. And I like what you said about kind of a panel and how we know our kids. And so it really becomes, especially with kiddos that are feeling like I want to, you know, it's almost a knee-jerk first thought of like, I want to transfer out, but really having those second thought conversations with our kiddos and our families and really being able to see if there are solutions. It will help illuminate maybe things that we can do better as a school or as a district, but also I think, you know, changing those imprints and change, like if there was harm, not just leaving, having them leave and then not ever really knowing what we could have done or what the harm was. So I appreciate that. If that's, you know, best case scenario, it feels like it would be number 3, where we're really having those panel or those kind of circle conversations with all of those families that want to leave, just to see, are there reparations, or is it best for you to be somewhere else, which is absolutely fine and a good choice. So, I mean, I think I would be good with, you know, moving forward. I would imagine that is sort of the best option.
I'm wondering if there's any opportunity for us to have an additional category in under the definition of hardship release, so that we can have I think you listed off 5 criteria. If we can add a 6th that is, you know, at the, I'm losing the word. Wow. At the discretion. Thank you. See, that a word that I just use at the discretion of the panel, something like that, so that we can we use that as a hardship case, or are we limited to just what the state rules say?
The board can direct us on how that. If that is something that you would like to see in place, then we can put that in place.
I have a question about the difference between, or the possibility of having a different process for transfers within the district versus out of the district, because, for example, I know Tualatin Middle School, those students split between 2 high schools. And so to those students, sometimes that doesn't feel like a transfer. That just feels like staying with maybe the main part of their cohort that they've formed for whatever reason. And so that's different than moving to another district altogether. So it seems like that could possibly have a different consideration or a different look.
Yes.
There's also more growth happening. And so this might be something we could plan for, anticipating where growth is going to be, and thinking about how to balance enrollment based on that.
Yes. Yes.
And just, that is one of our considering factors at the I can speak to the high school level when we're looking at approving or denying transfer requests. We do look at capacity at our 2 high schools, and we're constantly a part of like the projected growth in the incoming classes. And so we do have a little bit more leniency with in-district transfers than we do for the inter-district, and we are taking into consideration those factors.
Yes, and Director Weston, I'd be happy to spend some time with you if there's more questions you have to get you up to speed on this. And you touched a little bit on a conversation that we continue to have with the opening of Rutkin, and knowing that we have a lot of development happening and proposed in King City and in Tigard around wholesale district boundaries in general.
That was one of my questions in terms of when we're looking at Art Rudkin, and so we're going to be asking for transfers in that case from elementaries to kind of feed into that. And will that be looked at? I mean, I would imagine that's looked at completely differently because we're sort of asking for that, but you know, how will that impact data, or how will we kind of look at that bigger picture?
Yes, so we when we come back in on the 27th, we will also share with you the process we have put in place for Rutkin, which includes their transfer process is already started. There are folks that want to stay at their school writer currently, and there are some pockets of that community that would like consideration to attend Rutkin. So we are looking at that, and Principal Kingery is evaluating those on a case-by-case basis. So we will have an update for you on that on the 26th.
Perfect. Any other questions, comments? Dr. Bowman?
So based on this conversation, you'll come back with a recommendation for us to vote on? Okay. My little quick thing is, I think I agree with where Director Searchmead is going with this added discretion component. And my abundance of caution side is maybe we should have Nancy Hungerford take a look at that, because without a rubric of some kind to evaluate, it seems like we could easily get into some dicey territory in terms of fairness. So trying to have it always, but both ways, but that's what
I'm not wanting to put too much on the administrators to then having to be, Bailey can handle it. To having to be the one making that decision versus following a rubric. So I think that's a good note.
And I would add an opportunity to appeal. I mean, that's one of the things that we do with our in-district is that, we are able to find a solution for almost every single one of the requests that we get at the high school level. And occasionally it needs to go beyond Principal DeLurba and myself, and they're unhappy with it. There is an avenue by which they can appeal that, which I think is a healthy component to any sort of plan like this.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
And I would ask the board's consideration on a 5-minute recess. All right, I take that as a yes. So we will be back at 8:16. Oh. Everyone's in a speed read. All right, we are resuming our meeting at 8:17, and for next up is, I believe, Director Ebert. Am I out of order? Am I right? All right.
Director Ebert.
Action items, part 3 with Director Ebert.
Well, good evening again.
And welcome. All right. Well, as your Director of HR, I am here to present a tentative agreement to the TTEA and TTSD contract for our licensed staff. And in your packet is a summary. And I want to give a shout out to our TTEA partners for putting this together for us so that we have a real clear, organized way to be able to see the relevant changes to the contract, in addition to having access to all the tentative agreements in here. And it's wonderful to be done and to bring this to you at this point. And as I've been reflecting on the process that we have just finished up, I do want to remind our board, not all of you were part of this process. And just to put on record, this was a 5.5-year process, really. We had a 3-year contract that we started to negotiate with TTEA in March of 2020. And the world shut down. And at that point, we were at the end of our nearing the end of a 3-year contract with them. And the world shut down. And we went into MOU land with our TTEA partners, as well as OSEA. And in addition to the MOUs that we had in the 3 years of the contract that we were bringing to a close, we ended up going into the pandemic, as you well know, with multiple MOUs around just how we did business during that time. And so not only did we have an expired contract with a lot of old language that needed to be discussed, but we also had multiple MOUs with some very simple language that were just dealing with one quick topic, but many of those MOUs were full of a lot of language. And some of that language poured into how we do business now. And so not only did we have the contract, but we also had a multitude of MOUs that had to be addressed. It was a heavy task. And it did take us a long time, but we did get there. So are there any questions? Is there anything that, I know you're pretty familiar with all of this, but is there anything that I can help clarify? Director Irvin has got it down.
I am well versed.
Thank you for your time that you put in, helping be on that team.
I was just going to say, thank you, Director Bellman. Thank you, Chair Irwin,
Yes.
for some really heavy lifting on this. It was a lot of work. You guys put in some long hours, so thank you.
Well, I was actually going to say a huge thank you to Director Debbie Ebert for your final negotiation ever, we think.
Thank you.
So yeah, this was my first time participating in this process. It was also the latest I've been on a school district property since I was a senior in high school. And I've kind of been reflecting on it, and I think one big design problem is, and this happens in every district, we're negotiating contracts before we know how much money we're going to receive from the state. It's a horrible way that Oregon has designed this process that I was reflecting on. And I do think, I just appreciate the fiduciary responsibility that you and Director Moore and Superintendent Ricky Smith brought to the table in trying to do what was best for our community and our students. And likewise, I think TTEA members were advocating for their members and getting a fair contract. And it took us a really long time, but I think it's a contract that we can all hopefully be proud of, and that's going to serve the needs of our community. So I'm just really grateful that we were able to get this done. Thank you for all the work and time you put into it.
Yeah.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
I move that the Tigard-Tualatin School Board of Directors approve the contract terms between the board and TTEA as presented.
I second.
All right, motion has been made by Director Zerschmied and seconded by Vice Chair Jaimes. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will move to a choral vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you. Thank you, Director Ebert. All right, and now we will welcome Director Robson. And team.
Board Chair Irvin, members of the board, great to see everybody this evening. We want to spend a few minutes this evening as part of our yearly process in February to present new course proposals, any new course proposals that come forward as a part of a process for our middle and high schools. This year we have two new course proposals that have come forward and have been vetted and have come to you as a board to look at for approval this evening. One from Tualatin High School and then one from Tigard High School as well. So with that, I want to introduce, we have Principal Bailey from Tigard High School, Robert Hawthorne, who's a vocal teacher from Tigard High School. And we also have one from Tualatin High School, Brooke Mayo is here, Associate Principal, who'll be sharing some information briefly around the new course proposal for Tualatin High School. So with that, I want to turn it over. You've seen the new course proposals in the packet. So tonight will be just a brief kind of follow-up to what those classes are, and then we'll open it up for questions and go from there. So with that, why don't we start with, you had some time at the podium. Let's go with Brooke this evening. Brooke, talk about.
Okay, thank you. This course is a personal and academic wellness and support for IB and advanced students. So part of our work with the district is with equal opportunity schools, where we are promoting historically underrepresented students to take advanced courses, which include the IB courses and other advanced courses. And we had this proposed as a support class for students who are taking one or more advanced courses or IB courses. So to help with some goal setting, but also to help with managing time, managing maybe stress or anxiety that comes with taking these advanced courses. So this is the course that was proposed. Any questions?
Why don't we do this? We can open up questions.
Okay.
That would be fantastic. So I'll turn it over to Brian Bailey and Robert Hawthorne to talk about the proposed classroom Tigard.
Thank you, Todd. And thanks again. Let me come. I will be super brief because this is really not my wheelhouse, but Mr. Hawthorne, for those of you who don't know, is our vocal director extraordinaire. And one of the things that I will say about his work in proposing this class is really trying to meet students where they are at and inspiring them musically. And so I am just super excited about what he has on the table and the options that will become available for Tigard High School students in the future. So without further ado, I will let the master give you a brief kind of overview of what we're looking at.
Well, thank you. The idea behind Pop Vocal Studio is simply an issue of relevance related to the concept of our current choral program is really designed for more of a college-ready program, whereas this is more of a career-ready program. The idea of, as Principal Bailey is saying, meeting students where they are at, where their relevant interests are, that maybe they love to sing, but maybe they aren't really cut out for singing pieces in German and Russian and Spanish and that, but are more interested in singing perhaps music that is representative of the songs that are getting the Grammy Awards these days, getting the Latin Grammy Awards. One of the things that I think this course has the potential to do is to really reach our underserved population, where I'm interested in singing the popular music of the Marshall Islands. I'm interested in singing music of Central and South America. And I want to be able to sing in the language that I know. There it is. Pop Vocal Studio has that avenue for them to be able to grab the ukulele, grab the guitars next door. Working with Matt Steinmetz, who is the guitar instructor, we're envisioning a contemporary music track where students are able to work with recording and production and are able to work with Pop Vocal Studio and with the guitar program and meld them together and work collaboratively with each other in order to create a product that will serve not only the students, but also then serve the community.
So thank you very much. So with that, questions specific to these classes?
I have one comment and one question. My comment is I love the IB support idea, having had a daughter who was special ed, but who challenged herself and took an IB class. That would have been exactly the thing that she needed. Fortunately, she had a mom who was able to shove her along. But I think that's a wonderful idea for the kids who need it, so thank you. The pop music course, will the students be doing any performances? And if they do, will you please notify the board of those performances? 'Cause I would love
Absolutely.
to hear this.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that I love about this course design is that it's flexibility. It's the let's do in-class performances. Let's do performances at the lunch in the cafeteria. Let's go ahead and have them performing in the community, performing in the auditorium, so that it has a flexibility. I even envision the possibility of a national anthem strike force, where it's like, you know, having some kids who like, I really dig on singing the national anthem and I want to sing it in a more contemporary style. And I want to sing at the volleyball game, at the basketball game, at the football game, at the school board meeting. So yeah, absolutely.
Are there any statistics on electives that students request that they aren't able to get into to get a sense of the relative demand for various options?
That is a wonderful question that it's having a new class. One of the scary things that we have is this will be the first year that it goes up for forecasting. And so we don't have the historical data. What we have is the anecdotal data from talking to students when we're trying to recruit them into our choral program. There are students who love to sing. There are students who will tell you how much they love to sing, or they're singing as they're walking down the hallway. But trying to convince them to join a more traditional choral program is a bit of a challenge. So we're relying a little bit on anecdotal data, as well as conversations with choral directors in other schools and other districts about the likelihood for a class like this to kind of take root. But it is a bit of an experiment. So we won't know for sure until we throw it out there for forecasting. And then, as we do every year, build a master schedule, the world's largest Sudoku puzzle, based on that forecasting.
Well, I will just say, I love both of these so much. What I really like, I'll start with the personal and academic wellness class, is I think we make these assumptions when kids are in these advanced classes that they have all the executive functioning skills that they need and everything's just sort of a breeze. And I think we can unnormalize that idea and help them. And I think it really does on a mental health level, on an academic outcomes level, when they know that I can still get support and that doesn't lessen my academic achievement, to still get those supports, I think is a really important piece that a lot of our kids don't really recognize. And I think it's because we don't really recognize that. It's like, oh, they're fine. They're an IB, they're fine. You're an AP, you're fine. You know, so I really appreciate that. And the Pop Vocal Studio, I have that daughter that sings all of the time, and it is, you know, but to her credit, it's sort of like, well, but I don't know if I'm like a choir person, although I think that's a really important piece of that entire musical puzzle. And I think that for so many kiddos, it's like, I just want to try this out. I kind of want to see and sing the things that are familiar to me, that are from, you know, that I love, that I might hear in my own household, that I want to sing on the radio. And I think the Grammys were a testament to, you know, last night to there are a lot of cultures of music that are becoming more and more prevalent and more mainstream. And so I think there are more kids that, you know, will really take hold of this. And I think that's really an exciting opportunity. And I absolutely hope that there is performances all over the place, because that would be an incredible show. So thank you. Any other comments, questions? So with that, I would propose a motion.
I move that the Tigard-Tualatin School Board approve the following new courses: pop vocal studio and personal and academic wellness and support for IB and advanced students as presented.
A second.
All right, motion was made by Director Zerschmied and seconded by Director Bowman. Any discussion on the motion?
I think there was one final comment from our presenter.
Oh.
I'm good.
Okay. We're right on the verge here.
Sure. It's not too late. All right. All right. So we'll move to a choral vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you very
Go
much.
get some kids.
All right, and Director Moore. It is the Director Moore Show.
Good evening, Chair Irvin and members of the board. I have in the bullpen over there, Director Darren Bernard, in case there's technical questions on the next couple agenda items. The first one being Resolution 2223-09, which includes findings of fact for exemption from competitive bidding for the fire alarm replacement projects at Tualatin High, Fowler Middle School, Hazelbrook Middle School, and Bridgeport Elementary. And these projects we want to get done during the next summer months. And there's some technical complexities to the projects, including upgrading to a voice evacuation system. And currently, from what I understand, the two buildings, like for instance, at the Fine Arts Center at Tualatin High and the main building aren't connected in that regard. And this would get all of the systems at all four schools up to code, fire code. And our public contracting rules allow for an exception from the low bid process for this type of project. But it requires being transparent with the public and the contractor community. So approximately 2 weeks ago, we advertised that we were exercising this exception in the Daily Journal of Commerce, which the contractor community pays attention to, and can come to a hearing that we hosted last week to provide any feedback or gain any information about the reason for the exception. And we didn't have anybody show up or request the findings of fact during the 2-week period. So this evening, we're asking the board to proceed with adoption of Resolution 2223-09, which provides for this exception to competitive bidding. I'll stop there and see if there's any questions.
Am I correct in assuming that these are, this project would be paid for out of bond?
Correct. Thank you for pointing that out, Director Zerschmied.
Dr. Bowman?
I move to approve Resolution 2223-09, adopting findings of fact granting exemption from competitive bidding for fire alarm replacement projects at Tualatin High School, Fowler Middle School, Hazelbrook Middle School, and Bridgeport Elementary School by means of qualifications plus a bid, and authorizing selection by request for proposals.
Second.
Motion has been made by Director Bowman and seconded by Vice Chair Jaimes. Is there any discussion on the motion? That was the fastest read motion of all time. All right. Hearing none, I will move to a choral vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries unanimously. And Director Moore, you just get to stay here for quite a while with us.
So the next agenda item is again a set of projects that we're also asking for exemption from competitive bidding according to Resolution 2223-10. And this is for pavement for playgrounds at Mary Woodward, Byram, and Bridgeport. And again, tight time frame to get this work during the summer months, technical complexities related to requirement of a swale next to the pavement to handle drainage issues, including, the drainage that's coming off the roofs of the buildings. And so that's in a nutshell, some of the highlights of the reasons for requesting this exemption from competitive bidding. Again, we advertised, held the hearing, and had no request for the findings of fact. And we're asking the board to approve the resolution 2223-10.
Thank you for the clarification about the complexity, because I know we usually do the exemption for a project that's fairly sensitive, and I was thinking pavement's not that sensitive, but the swale, that makes a ton of sense. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
I move to approve resolution 2223-10, adopting findings of fact, granting exemption from the competitive bidding for the playground pavement repair projects at Mary Woodward, Edward Byram, and Bridgeport Elementary by means of qualifications plus a bid, and authorizing selection by RFP.
Second.
Motion was made by Director Zerschmied and seconded by Vice Chair Janes. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will move to a choral vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up.
Next item is resolution 2223-11, authorizing the Northwest Regional ESD Local Service Plan. The boards at the ESD level has approved the plan following approval by the regional school district superintendents. And so it's your turn to consider approval of the plan. And just to remind everyone, 4.5% of the state school fund goes to ESD. The rest goes to 95.5%. Goes to the school districts in Oregon. And of that 4.5%, 90% of what our ESD gets goes out to the school districts. In the form of that 90%, 75% goes into ESD service credit. So that's a menu of services we can choose from for our benefit. And then the other 25% is for core services, which can be accessed by all participating districts. And the ESD, has to develop their budget much earlier than school districts, because school districts are depending on those services for their plan for next year. And so they're basing these numbers that I'm going to share on the $9.5 billion, since they've had their plan done for a few weeks, if not months. And of course, 49% would come to Oregon school and ESD districts in 23-24. And the menu of services available for service credits are described on pages 13-23 of the local service plan that was included. And pages 37-38 of the plan highlight our district's historical use of those services, including the use of service credits. And on page 34, there's an estimate of district by district what our allocations would be for service credits. In the current year, we received approximately $4 million. Under the proposed resolution plan for next year, the district would receive almost $4.4 million. And that's an increase of 341,000. These numbers likely would go up because they would have 9.9 billion coming to them at a minimum, like the rest of the districts. And then the core services are going up slightly, about 100,000. And then we also receive through the plan what's called county allocations, which can be used at the district's discretion. The estimate for next year is 438,000, a small increase from the prior year. And just a note also, this plan must be adopted by 2/3 of the member districts in the region, representing at least 50% of the students served by the ESD.
If I can just point out to my fellow board members, Tigard-Tualatin represents over 1/3, so if we don't vote for it, it doesn't pass. I wanted to remind my fellow board members, I sit on the ESD budget committee. And so as we are looking at that extra 0.5 or 0.5 billion, 500 million, that represents roughly a 5% increase over the numbers we might be seeing here. So that's what we're hoping for.
Thank you. Any, what?
No comments. I was just gonna enter this motion. Okay, I move the Tigard-Tualatin Board of Directors adopt resolution 2223-11 authorizing Northwest Resolutions or Northwest RESD. I don't know. Local service plan for 2023-24 as presented.
A second.
Motion was made by Vice Chair Jaimes and seconded by Director Zerschmidt. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll move to a choral vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, next.
Okay, the next item is a decision on the Creekside Community High School greenhouse project. And this is a project that's been in the works for, I think, since prior to the pandemic. So it's good to bring it to the board this evening for consideration. And we recently completed a request for proposal process, including qualifications plus bid. And we received 2 responses, one from a company called Billscape and the other from Inline Commercial Construction, and a committee of representatives from the district, the school, and the district's consultant reviewed and scored the proposals independently in the areas indicated, including background, experience, personnel, and the bid amount. And although Inline had a slightly larger bid price, we're making a recommendation to award the bid to them versus Buildscape. And that's one reason why you do a request for proposal process, to account for qualifications plus price, to bring into the picture their experience and their background, especially working with K-12 projects. In that, Inline, just to revisit history, they did most, if not all, of the secure vestibule work throughout our district. And the committee overall felt most comfortable with them. And this project, the high school success team has been reserving those grant dollars since last year. The kit, the greenhouse comes as a kit that was purchased a year ago with those dollars for about $80,000. And then we have to hire a contractor to install the kit. And it'll be located behind the old schoolhouse. And so it won't be out by the road. It'll be behind the building. And we will also use carryover dollars from last year's grant. We can carry over those dollars within the same biennium. And we just have to get the project done by June, of course. So that will be the resource for the construction also.
Questions? I'm really excited this is finally happening. So I will say that it's been a long time coming, and several of my visits to Creekside have talked about kind of like, this is the hope and this is where I think it'll be. And this is like really planning for that. So I think it will be an incredible piece to have as part of their programming there. So it's really exciting.
I move to award the contract to Inline Commercial Construction, Inc. for the Creekside Community High School Greenhouse Project in the amount of $183,772.
I'll make a second.
Motion was made by Director Zerschmidt and seconded by Director Weston. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will move to a choral vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, last one. Oh, that's right. That's me. That's me. I was like, well, Dave, I was like, Director Moore, where are you going? But you're done. Okay. Yes. All right. So this last one is the consideration for us to hear an appeal for a complaint. And historically, we have the option to hear or not hear appeals, but we have always done so. And so just a little bit of historical context there. And so this is simply a vote on hearing this appeal, which would be at a future executive session. Or we can just stay here longer. Anyone?
That the Tigard-Tualatin School District Board of Education will further consider a request to appeal the superintendent's decision regarding a complaint.
Second.
Motion was made by Director Zerschmidt and seconded by Vice Chair Jaimes. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll move to a choral vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And with that, I will adjourn our meeting at 8:49 p.m.